Doug, nice to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to see you as well.
It's been a while. I was trying to figure out where we met. We have the most strange encounters. I couldn't figure out if we met in Venice or in San Diego. And prior to the this, you told me no, man. We met in Venice. And
hmm
after we met again in San Diego at a film festival where you were starring as an actor in a brilliant comedy. And then we met again in New York, completely randomly, just in the middle of the street, which which is just
Well,
fantastic.
I'm gonna have to run into you in Italy one of these days. Now we got to check that box off too.
Yes. And I have learned from you guys that to help reach out to a community, you have to learn how to communicate. So my name is Giovanni. I am 36 years old Italian guy. I look like 12, but I promise I'm 36. I have brown hair, glasses, and I'm wearing a green t-shirt today. And I'm with the fantastic Doug.
Thank you. And I'm Doug. I'm a white male in my 30s. I've got like a light beard and short, dark brown hair, and I've got a checkered, like light blue, dark blue button-up shirt, and just a kind of a plain wall white background.
Then, and your film, I saw it for the first time, I think a couple of months ago. And uh, about learning how to communicate. I mean, wow, feeling through. Tell us about your film. It's just mind blowing what you did.
Well, thank you. It was something that I made, it's a film that includes, it's really about a story about this teen in need and his unlikely relationship with this deaf blind man that he encounters late one night out on the street. And it was something that was inspired by an encounter that I had with the first deaf blind person I ever met. And it was something that I knew that I needed to make alongside the deaf blind community, not only because I needed to learn more about the community to do the story justice, but I knew that there was a responsibility in representing a community that really hadn't been represented before. And I wanted to make sure I did that in the best way. So that's why I partnered with the community to make it. And, we're so glad to not only share a story that, has been, resonating with a lot of people from the story standpoint, but also the conversations that we've generated around the story around authentic representation, having cast the first deafblind actor to star in a film, and lots of other great conversations that happen around authentic representation and collaborative storytelling.
And that's a beyond a bold choice because you had to learn new ways also as a director to communicate with your talent. How was that experience?
For me, I think I'm always filmmaking is something for me that I guess just like kind of looking back at the stories that I gravitate to, not only tend to be like really personal stories with kind of like a social topic in the fabric of them, but I also love the telling stories in a way that like I feel like I'm gonna grow and learn throughout the process as well. So I really like to, people always say write and tell stories about what you know, and I say yes to a degree. I mean, I think to me the way I interpret that is write and tell stories about what you know in the sense of like what's in your heart, but that can look like anything, and that can look like circumstances you've never been in or people who aren't you. Like if you really if it's coming from an authentic place. And for me, I realized that the stories I tell are very personal to me, like from a heart space, but they usually dwell in spaces that I need to learn a lot about to be able to tell and really grow in the process of making them. And for me, I'm excited by that. I'm not scared by it. I mean, it's scary too. Like filmmaking's scary just because there's so many things that can go wrong, right? Like there's just a million things that can always go wrong and you're constantly trying to figure things out. But I also really embrace that because to me, it's an amazing opportunity for me to learn more about other communities, other worlds, and ultimately more about myself. So that was something that was certainly a huge part of feeling through, and what really fired me up and kind of kept that fire burning throughout the last few years of making it and showing it.
And you've done this film in partnership with the Helen Keller National Center, and you have designed with them an experience for the film to reach out to those communities. Tell me more, man. That was something that really gave me chill when I was reading about it.
So, the I had a really great connection and sense of the inspiration behind this film, which again was directly inspired by a chance encounter I had with the first deafblind person I ever met 10 years ago on a New York City street corner late one night. But a lot of, so that was really clear for me in my gut and in my heart. Like that was kind of the driving inspiration throughout the whole thing. But there were a lot of really great things that organically arose from like following that thread and following it all the way through. And one of them was like pretty early on in like I say pre-production, but it was really just also just trying to figure out how I was going to make this and pay for it also, which I guess you can call pre-production in this case. I realized I was connecting with, I was connecting with, I partnered with Helen Keller National Center by just reaching out to them and being persistent and telling them why I wanted to make this. I'd been getting to know the local deafblind community in LA, flying back to New York and going to Long Island where the National Center is based and getting to know the community there. And while I was connected with a lot of people, there was someone I had connected with who worked within the deafblind community who had said, oh, after you shoot this film, you should shoot a documentary about the community. I bet that would really help the community. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I just shoot a documentary right now? Like that's where my brain went. So I started documenting the process of trying to make this film, that ended up following the inspiration behind it, as well as my partnering with Helen Keller National Center. We had cameras in the room when we were auditioning our actors who were deafblind. And then we also organically, in following that, I ended up trying to track down the man who I had met at that time 7 years prior, named Artemio, who inspired all this. And we were following the better part of a year-long journey to try to track him down. And this whole other story was emerging that we ended up making into this documentary that's a companion piece to Feeling Through, called Connecting the Dots. So when as I was finishing up both films simultaneously, which was pretty crazy in and of itself, I realized we were going to come away with, Feeling Through runs about 18 minutes, Connecting the Dots runs about 24 minutes. And I realized, now this is something longer than a short if we show these things together. And I'd also realized I'd met so many amazing people in the community along the way who I felt like, and that I'd also learned so much about the community along the way that I thought there were a lot more people like me out there prior to connecting with the deafblind community who didn't know anything about the community, had never met anyone in the community, maybe had only heard about Helen Keller in school and never anyone else from the community. And I thought that's when the idea of what I called the Feeling Through experience emerged, which was this 90 to 100-minute event where it would be Feeling Through, Connecting the Dots, the companion documentary, and then a panel discussion and Q&A with myself, our deafblind actor Robert, and local people from whatever deafblind community we were showing the film. And fortunately, we got to start doing these prior to the pandemic. And so we also knew that it was important to share this film and this experience with the very community that was at the heart of it. So we knew we needed to make it accessible for anyone, people who are deafblind, blind, low vision, deaf, hard of hearing, and the general public. So we made it a fully accessible screening event. And a lot of that was, again, getting to really know the community, work with the Helen Keller National Center to do that. And what that would look like when we were doing it in person is that we'd have as many as 50 interpreters. And so basically what we'd do is we would get, we'd send out RSVPs well ahead of time, particularly to the local deaf, blind, and deafblind communities of where we were, to try to get RSVPs at least a couple weeks ahead of time so that we could make sure we created the accessibility that we needed to. So we would get as many we would provide one-to-one accessibility, because accessibility is not like a binary thing or like a box to be checked. Like,
Yeah.
people have a whole spectrum of different access needs that differ depending on who the individual is. And so we wanted to get as much information as we could about the individuals who needed various accessibility considerations ahead of time, so we could tailor it to them. So what that would end up looking like is, imagine a theater that has anywhere from 150 to 300 audience members, and anywhere from a fifth to a third of the people in there are deaf, blind, and deaf, and we'd have as many as 50 interpreters and support staff to provide that one-to-one accessibility. So,
Wow.
and look, Gio, I'm sure you've seen a lot of movies in your day and gone to a lot of movie theaters, but I'll never forget our very first screening in Cary, North Carolina. I was sitting in the back of the theater. We had about 150 people there, and about a third were from the deaf, blind, and deaf communities. And to sit back and see some people having the entire experience tactilely signed to them, which is ASL signed into the hand, for certain parts of the deaf, blind community, to have other people who had close visual interpreters that, their vision was as such that they needed to have a certain distance, like Robert, who's our deaf, blind actor. He still has like pinhole vision that's foggy. So under the right lighting conditions with a certain distance, he can still use his eyes. To have people rely on like stage interpreters, people who are like just off to the right or left of the screen that we're interpreting. Then to have audio description for blind and low vision participants, which is a narrative track that's describing everything that's visually happening in between dialogue. And then to also have, various accessibility considerations of transportation to and from the theater. It completely redefined my understanding of what it means to experience a film. And a quick anecdote to kind of button that up is, again, we would do both films and then the panel discussion and Q&A. And at our very first screening, the first person to stand up to give feedback was a man who is deaf blind, who had had the entire experience tactilely signed to him. And he said, I loved the film. I was really moved by it. And I was also really happy to know of the authentic casting of a deaf blind man. But moreover, he said, people assume that because I'm deaf and blind, I wouldn't care to go to the theater. They're like, people think, what's a deaf and blind person care about going to a movie theater? But he says, no, that's not right. He's like, I love coming out to a theater and having this shared experience. I just never have the opportunity to do so, because there's never the accessibility for me to do that. And I thought that was such an amazing first feedback to get, because it really drove home why it was important we were doing that, and why you can't operate off of assumption. I think that if nothing else, feeling through the process of making it and the story itself has been a masterclass and the greatest takeaway is, you can't place your experience on someone else. Like, you need to be humble in receiving someone else's perspective, desires, experience of the world. Because if you put your own perceptions on someone else, 99% of the time you're going to be wrong, because that's not what someone else's experience is. So that's been something that was been, really informative for like the people in the audience at these screenings that have maybe never communicated or heard from someone who's deaf blind, and are getting this immediate, not just hearing from them and asking questions, but having someone to their left and their right experience the film in a different way. And then we ended up doing virtual accessible experiences too during the pandemic, so we could continue to share it with like tons of people virtually, and have an ASL interpreter box, live captions, and various other accessibility components. And it's been an amazing way to share it, to bring it to more people, to connect people, and to really learn a lot throughout the process.
Man, you are like, I think, cinema is supposed to bring people together, create a conversation, and you were able to bring communities together, communities that too often are forgotten, uh, and create a conversation, because you were able to communicate and create connections, which is what films should be all about.
And what I think about, and I think, a lot of filmmakers feel this way, and also just like film and like diehard enthusiasts are sad to see what's happening with theatrical exhibition, right? And if it wasn't already strained, COVID he made it much more strained. Just before we got on, my friend texted me a Variety article that said ArcLight and Pacific theaters are closing all of their theaters permanently, which is like so disheartening if you're a movie lover. These places that really relish theatrical exhibition and do it in the finest ways are shuttering their doors. And I think, what I hope that we've done a little bit in our experiences, and what I think there needs to be more ingenuity moving forward, is like really showcasing why coming to a theater and having that immediate shared experience is something that you can't replace even with the best home surround sound projector screen setup. And I think things like the feeling through experience, and I would hope that there are other films out there who try to be more creative, because there's something that people got from that experience that you can absolutely not replicate watching it at home by yourself. And I think that's what I love about theater. That can't be replicated. And that's what I think that we hopefully can get back to on the other side of the pandemic, and really find a way to, anytime there's a real hit to something, it's a sink or swim moment. It's an opportunity to either innovate or go the way of the dinosaur. And let's be honest, we need to innovate in that space because it's just not working now. And I think things like this are the innovation that would bring people. I guarantee you that if there was a way to, if we were working on creating a feeling through experience and partnering with a theater chain to do it on a bigger scale, but people will want to spend a little extra money to come out to something like that, which is an unforgettable experience that we've heard many times over, than experience it alone on their laptop or on their TV. They just will. It's about how do we start to change the way in which people relate to this, to make them understand that they're getting something out of it. And that's what I hope is ahead of us as people, as the need to innovate is obviously so clear now.
And it's unfortunate. I didn't know about ArcLight. I just found out through you. But I was in London in October, and I was lucky enough to have my film going into theaters for that 2-window week where theaters in London were actually open. And the managers of the theaters were a little bit. They were very sad because we were hyper excited there, and they were saying there is a big community around this theater. It was Picture House, and was another small theater group, and they said those theater live with their own communities. You take away that from the community, you take away a big part of their life, because it's more than going to watch a film. It's coming together and share something. And the opportunity that you presented through your film is not only to expand, but to open up the conversation, to create new ways of communicate, to remember ourselves that there is more than just what we know and how we experience things. So it's I think it's, yes, what you did, it couldn't come at a better time, because it's a film that connects people. It's a film that asks people to communicate with each other and learn new ways to do it. And we hopefully, coming out of this Zoom life, we can seek for that, seek for new ways of communicating, new way of experiencing things. So I think the timing is, your film is answered perfectly the why now. Yes, absolutely, yes.
To that point, I was just talking with a friend of mine about this earlier today, but it's I'm not naive, and I get the business element of the movie business. I'm not trying to say that, you shouldn't have a regard for that. That's how our world functions and what makes the world go around in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it's we need to also have a healthy regard and responsibility to honor the storytelling part of this as well. If you want to just make money, don't go into the movie business. Really don't, because there's other businesses that you're first of all, it's going to be a much better place to make money. And two is like where that is the end goal, right? If you're like on Wall Street and a Wall Street better, like that's the end goal. It's not, you're not trying to like save the planet or enlighten people. You're trying to make money, right? If you're going to the movie business, you should want to have a successful business, but you should also have a regard for storytelling and the responsibility behind storytelling. And I'm not saying every film needs to like change the world. I mean, I think there's a place for every type of story, like a silly comedy, which I love as well, like a horror movie. I'm not saying everything needs to have this deeper message that like is making people kind of like upend the way that they've seen the world. But with that said, it's like this move toward, with the streamers taking over of just, and I think like there was the Scorsese open letter that kind of went viral, that not that he's the only person talking about this, but just to give a reference point of what was kind of like in the zeitgeist of like, when we start to just refer to it as content, it becomes, it loses what makes it a special business, which is in the business of creating stories that have meaning and affect people in a certain way. And I think people need to get back to having a regard for the storytelling, the responsibility of the storytelling side of things. Because if we're just trying to if we just have so many people that are consuming so much content now, and we're just trying to crank out content because people made their way through every other show and they just need something else, and that's kind of the main way that people are engaging with this, like, then we're missing like a vital element of why stories exist in the first place, like, and I know this sounds cheesy, but like sometimes highlighting the basics are important. It's like, why do stories exist? Like, we've been telling stories since we were like cavemen, right? And cave women. It's like, because we have this vital need to deeply communicate with each other in a way, create stories around things that have wash over us in a way that give us different insights and understandings. And that's where stories come from. And that's why stories exist. And if they get too far away from that and lose their meaning, it's like we're missing out on one of the great. It would be like if everyone just started, look, you're Italian, you know what it's like to eat great food. I mean, come on. What if we all just started drinking that slush that like tech people do because they don't want to get up from their screen because they're working 8 hours a day? Like, what kind of life is that, to just drink slush? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just to stay alive. Well, are we just trying to stay alive? Or are we trying to like feed our souls, feed our hearts, feed our understandings? And if your allegiance is only to the dollar, like, go take that somewhere else. Go to Wall Street. Like, we don't need you. We need
Go
people
to
in
tech.
positions of power. Right. We need people in positions of power who are like, we're going to do good business by also telling great stories, like that. Those things can coexist. I'm
Well,
like getting all fired up now.
I have to say though, this year I'm very positive because I've seen the Oscar nomination, and beyond your film, I think this year the films that are out there are making a statement. From the feature to the short to the docus. And it's a big shout out to bold storytelling, to like new ways of storytelling, new stories. And it's for me that was it's the year of the revenge, for independent cinema, I believe, a little bit. And so I like to look at things in the positive way, and I think we are we have an opportunity in our hand, to build new things. I had this great conversation with Peter Baxter from Slamdance, which chose your film, and congratulations, you got an award there as well. And he's saying, like, like small theaters will lose the battle likely. So for us, festivals, we have the opportunity to engage again those small theaters and create something with them in order to save those communities that live around those theaters. And so it's just something that we have to figure it out, and we have to like work together. But yeah, it's an opportunity, I think, you know.
Totally, absolutely.
And I know your film is out there. It's through your website, Feeling Through. They can watch the movie, right? It's on
Mhm.
YouTube available.
Correct. Yeah. On feelingthrough.com, you can not only find the film, but you can also find the companion documentary, Connecting the Dots. So you can watch those, right back to back.
And it's I think it's what you did, also putting it out there, making it available. Uh, it's like another way to say, like, you know, this is what we did, like this is why we did it, you know, without waiting. And like, you know, I don't know, now there is like all kinds of ways to monetize even short films, and I'm like, no, you did it, it's out there, and it's available. I think it's bold, like every choice you made, it's super bold, and it's paying off.
Appreciate it. And that was something that was important. You know, like we've been really fortunate. At the point we're having this conversation, we have like 3.1 or 2 million views over just a couple months. It's been going all over the place, and people have been responding to it in ways where we've gotten not just the thousands of comments, but like thousands of emails and direct messages from people who have a really deep connection to this film. And especially during this last year that's been so challenging, we've had so many people tell us that it's something that's really grounded them in a more optimistic perspective moving forward, really helped turn things around for them. We've used it in our own events, as curriculum in middle schools and high schools and universities, at international conferences. And now that it's so widely available, I hear on a regular basis, schools and school districts that have been using both films as required curriculum for lots of classes, to introduce young students to the deafblind community, to have a more heartfelt connection to this community, talk about other topics around the film, what the Tariq character is going through. And it's something that, like, it's bigger than entertainment. That's what it's always been with this film. That's how we started off making it, 3+ years ago. And that's been really important. And, some people told me that it was unwise to do that, but we didn't. It's unwise. Why? You know what I mean? Like, what is the bait? What's the footing that what are you standing on that's telling you that's unwise? Because for us, it's super wise. You know what I mean? We've gotten to share it with so many people who've had such, not just amazing feedback for us, but just are holding a mirror to us of what it means to them, and why it's important to them, and why it was important to share it with other people. And that's the biggest reward. And you know what, too, like, you can, if you're also interested in making money off your film, and if it's something that a lot of people watch, you can do plenty fine off of getting a lot of views on YouTube. Like, you can actually, honestly, with a short film, most of the time, if you have a film that's getting watched by millions of people, you have someone that's savvy of how to, put it up on YouTube, like, you can make more money off of that than a lot of people are going to get for distribution deals for short films. So it's like, it doesn't, the right way also can be like the smart way too. You know what I mean? Like, the right way, I'm using quotation marks around this, but people, I think, are just too quick to kind of like, listen to this recycled kind of advice of how to do things. And sometimes you need to let the subject matter dictate things, more than like what other people's wisdoms are, if that makes sense.
And sometimes there is only one way to find out if you're making a good choice or the wrong choice. You just gotta do it. And I think you
Totally.
made the right choice. So yeah, I think you're good. But man, I don't want to take you away. I'm sure you have like a crazy amount of stuff going. Are you in New York right now, or are you in LA?
I'm in LA.
Awesome. So I don't know what's the life of Doug now, you know, with everything that is going on. I'm sure it's like an awesome one. I'm very excited for you. I think, you know, what you have done, it deserve all the good that is coming your way, and I'm sure there is gonna be more. I'm excited, and I think, you know, if one person plants a good seed, something good sprout out, and hopefully will make more people wanting to plant good seeds. So what you did, it's an inspiration for many people telling stories out there. And sometimes everybody, when I was writing in the beginning of my career, like people were asking me like, oh, why are you writing like those coming of age or romantic stuff? I'm like, yeah, because that's what I like, but people are looking for horror films now. And I'm like, yes, but it's not coming. So what am I gonna do? And I'm glad you did what you did by writing something that you wanted to write, telling a story that you wanted to do it, you wanted to tell, and doing it with people that deserve that story and deserve what has come out of it. So, you were bold. You did all the bold choices, from choosing a story to picking an authentic deaf-blind actor to building more than just a film but a whole experience around it. And I hope that this is only the great beginning of a great more. So
Thank you so much, Gio. I really appreciate that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like the one piece of advice I always have to give is like, listen to yourself and tell the stories that you want to tell, and not the stories that other people are telling you are the stories that you need to tell. Like that to me is like the most important thing. And like I think that'll be the best foundation to not just have like a successful career or whatever, to have like a enjoyable career and a meaningful career.
yeah.
Like that's because ultimately, like, again, why are you getting into this if there's not kind of, and again, I'm not saying everyone needs to be in this to change the world. Like I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying you need to be rooted in something deeper than I just want to work, because this isn't the field for that. You're in the storytelling business that is having a real effect on the people that are consuming what you're doing. So you got to be rooted in something deeper than just, I just want to work. Like I think that's just not, I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think it's like a way to create an enjoyable career. And yeah, I think that's just the most important. Tell the stories you want to tell.
100%. Be bold, and it pays off, And if it doesn't pay off, I always say, like, at least you are bold,
Totally. It's like, I'd rather take a big swing and miss than like just be kind of like tapping it and just kind of like doing the same little thing over and over again,
So the next wild time we meet has to be in Italy.
I'd
So
love to do it. By the way, I'm kind of ashamed to say this because it's been on the top of my list forever. I've never been to Italy, even though I've been to almost everywhere else in Europe. So I'm like, that's like really, I'm gonna take you up on that because I got to get over there like ASAP.
yeah, we gotta figure that out. We are gonna figure that out, and I wanna like give you a big virtual hug. We will all root for you. You have many friends out there that are sending you good vibes. I saw your main actor Robert in many interview. I mean, that guy is the most cheerful, exciting person I ever saw in my life. So that guy deserves all the best that is out there.
100%.
Steven, the lead actor next to Robert, another brilliant man. You are surrounded by good people. Your executive producer, Marley. You're like, if it's not an Oscar, that one, you already won it. So
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it has attracted some really fantastic people, and I'm so happy to have been working with. They're just fantastic people, and they like really, it takes a great team to make something. Filmmaking's too collaborative and it's too hard. You have to do it with great people.
So we're gonna leave our friend from Nòt with a clip from your film.
Great.
And I wanna thank you, man, for taking time for this. And we gotta take you to Italy next. That's it.
I'm gonna take you up on that, Gio. Thank you. It's great talking to you.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna send the video now.
Excuse me, miss, you have a swipe? You never seen a blind and deaf guy before?